Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me loud and clear? Thank you for taking time to join our webinar today. I am Lynette, Senior Manager, Events and Marketing at SHRI. Good afternoon to all again. Let me know if you can hear me. Say hello in the chat or raise your hands. I see that. Thank you. So thank you all again. We'll start in about 5 minutes as we allow participants to join in. We appreciate your patience and understanding. So in the meantime, I will be doing a quick short sharing about SHRI for the information of those who are not our members and first time joining us in our webinar. So for those who have heard this countless times, I hope you just bear with me a little while. It will just take about 2 minutes. So SHRI, we are Singapore's leading professional HR body dedicated to powering human capital in tandem with our nation building efforts. And we are as old as Singapore. It's our 55th year. These are our vision and mission. So we'd like to advocate HR best practices, connect a community of HR professionals, and of course, enhance the HR profession. And this is about SHRI. So under the SHRI umbrella, of course, we have SHRI, and we look at enhancing recognition and standing of the HR profession via our professional membership and our signature events such as the Singapore HR Awards. And under the SHRI Academy, we look to raise and enable HR professionalism via our School of Human Capital Management and HR WSG and IHRP accredited short courses. And at SHRI Corp, we look to provide HR resources, expertise, and value-added services to individuals and organizations via our corporate HR trainings, consultancy work, and public learning workshops. And of course, we look to be the ecosystem in Singapore. Okay. So we are led by President Ms. Loh Pek Kam, Chief HR Officer and Advisor for PSDM Prime Minister's Office. And at management, we are led by Mr. Alvin Aloysius Goh, who is our Executive Director. So these are the national and regional partners that we work very closely with. The different types of SHRI membership that we have. So we are currently extending 6 months complimentary SHRI membership in view of the pandemic. So these will be running till end of December. So if you have not joined us as a SHRI member, do feel free to reach out to me or my colleagues or write in to us, and we'll be more than happy to share more with you. So the different type of key events that we used to run face-to-face in a year, hoping to bring this back in 2021 and start seeing some of you that have been supporting us a lot in our webinars face-to-face. Okay. And next, a typical calendar of event for the entire year's event that we do. So how 2020 look like would generally be all webinars. So I'm really, really hoping to do some face-to-face webinar next year. So thank you. So once again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Okay. So for those who just joined, good afternoon again and welcome. I'm Lynette, Senior Manager Events and Marketing at SHRI. So before we kickstart the webinar, I'm just going to share some quick, simple ground rules for the ease of your participation. Okay. So all attendees are muted for better control of the webinar. We seek your understanding. You may make chats in the chat function box at the bottom, which I see a lot of you are already doing that. So thank you very much. So, but I would like to highlight, ensure that if you have questions pertaining to the topic itself of the webinar, do use the Q&A icon on the right side that you can see at the bottom of your screen to type in your questions. This is so that we do not miss any of your questions, okay? So we'll answer your questions during the Q&A segment later on after all our speakers have presented. So webinar recording and all the presenters sharing will be sent to you next week, so not to worry, okay? So we have also received several questions from participants, and thank you very much for sending in these questions. So rest assured, actually, a lot of these questions will be answered in our speaker's presentation today, and there will be a couple that may not be, but we'll attend to them during the Q&A segment. And throughout the session itself, if you have any questions pertaining to the topics that you would like to ask the speakers later on, feel free to type them in the Q&A icon. Okay. So the theme that we have for today's webinar uh, is enhancing organization capability for 2021. And we are very happy to have partnered WSG in this Employers Connect series of theirs and invited senior industry leaders to share their expertise with us. So it's the year end, right? And many organizations are planning for 2021. So if the pandemic planning is tougher than usual and requires a lot more careful thinking. So our speakers will explore with us on enhancing manpower's capability through upskilling and reskilling and workforce management. And of course, we are happy to have WSG share with us various support programs under the SG United Jobs and Skills Package, which may aid businesses in 2021. So without further ado, let me hand over the session to our first speaker of the day, Mr. Kenneth Loh. So Kenneth is the Regional Director of CIPD Asia and has more than 30 years experience in managing businesses across countries in the Asia Pacific. So he's going to share with us today to be future ready through upskilling and reskilling. Kenneth, please. Okay, I'm just going to welcome Kenneth.
Can
Hello,
everybody, can you see the slides, everyone?
Yes, I can, Kenneth.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Lynette, for the introduction. And also thank you, Lynette and SHRI, for inviting me to this very interesting webinar this afternoon. So over the next 20 minutes or so, I would like to share with you what are some of considerations that you may want to have as you start to plan for next year, particularly in the area of reskilling and upskilling your organization for the future. What I'll be sharing will not be just theories, but really work that we have been working with our clients over the course of the last several years. Before that, let me introduce a bit of CIPD for those of you who are not familiar with what we do. We are a not-for-profit organization based in the UK, and we have offices in Dublin, Dubai, and Singapore. We are more than 106 years old. Yeah, so it's a pretty long time where we are the only chartered institution in the world for people like you and I in the HR L&D world. We have now an active community of more than 160,000 HR professionals worldwide. And I'm sure there are some of our members here today where we work together with professional bodies, government agencies, organizations, and individuals with a common goal to raise the capability and visibility of HR professionals. As I was preparing for this talk today about upskilling and reskilling, we know there are two perspectives to this. So today I will focus primarily on the employer's perspective, as is in line with the theme, but also for you as participants, think about yourself as employees, because there are implications to you personally as well in terms of how you want to upskill and reskill your own efforts. I was reflecting on 2020, which is coming to a very quick end. How I was amazed that one phenomenon in this world can affect so many countries, and how one leader in the country can affect organizations in the country, and how one organization strategy and how your HR strategy can impact lives of individuals, not one, but many lives. So it reminds me that we as HR professionals play a very important role. As we start to plan around the workforce, we can actually impact lives of our employers and our employees. So today I want to focus specifically on this idea of upskilling, reskilling your workforce in the context of workforce planning. We all know that when we're talking about workforce planning and the need for upskilling and reskilling, we need to first consider what sort of gaps do we have. We want to start with looking at how many people do we have in the right skills. Most of the time, we will focus on whether we have too few people. But do you know that if you have too many people with the right skill, it is a problem as well. So start to look at that in terms of the number of people. Then you want to look at the types of skills that you have. Do you have the right skills? Is there a mismatch of your existing skill? Or are the skills of your people outdated or obsolete? And while you are doing all that, you may also want to consider there will be a period of transition when new and old skills of your people coexist. So how do you maintain and overlap this? For us at CIPD, we ask our clients to think of 4 questions. First of all, ask yourself, what are the critical skills and competencies that you require for not just the current environment, but for the future? So we help them go through this in the form of workforce planning concepts. Then we ask whether there is a ability for you to map in terms of job level, job families and job roles. And when you are able to do that, you will be able to get down to the job level and job description. And we do this in the context of what we call job analysis and job design. And I always tell our HR practitioners that before you want to equip your organizations, you really need to equip yourself first. You know, the concept of oxygen mask coming up from the airlines. You got to equip yourself with the oxygen mask before you can help others. So think about this yourself. How can you equip yourself with workforce planning, job analysis before you can start to look at what sort of job gaps, mismatched surpluses are there? And from then on, you can look at strategies to address them. In terms of strategies, there are actually very simple 3 categories of strategy. You either build them, which is to develop talent from within, or you buy them from outside, which is to hire, or the third category, which we call it borrowing. Yeah, I'll explain each one of them. What do we mean by build? This is where the upskilling and reskilling comes in. Many of us use these two interchangeably, but they are actually slightly different. We talk about upskilling when you are adding additional skills, yeah, to make your job role more relevant, because jobs expand these days, primarily driven by technology changes and disruption. And then reskilling is really learning a new set of skills to qualify either for new jobs or different positions in the company. Right, so upskilling, reskilling forms a large part of your build strategy if you want to adopt it. Some may want to adopt a buy or borrow strategy where you employ people and also outsource certain function. Now, under what circumstances should we use each of these strategy? You know, as Lynette mentioned, you are planning for next year. When do you consider a build option? You want to consider a build option only if you have a pretty strong talent development systems, ability to implement a talent development plan within your organization. So for example, if you're a startup, this may not be the right option for you. But if you're an established organization with HR capability, this could be a possible discussion. However, there are risks to this. For example, are you able to secure investment for training and development? You know, we in Singapore are very blessed because we have our government and various government bodies who has various supporting facilities through funding and so on. With WSG here, you know, half our problem is solved, right? Because we are able to get support. But there are also risks about lead time. How are you able to get the people ready and be fully efficient to run as you go through this training process. Our recommendation is not just send the people for training and expect miracle to happen. No, you really need them to get through workplace experiences, style of application. I'll explain a bit more later how we actually use that and work with our clients around this. It's unfortunate, that I was reading this article that despite many senior managers, executives knowing that there is a skills shortage, not many are significantly investing in training budget increase. So I hope if you guys are in organizations, we got to ask ourselves and our senior leaders to consider increase the training budget for our organizations. Otherwise, we may not be able to catch up. Now, if you want to consider the buy option, this is where you want to attract talents foreign outside to your organization. Many people choose this as a quick and easy approach. However, it's not as easy as we think because you may not find individuals with the right skills even when you want to. And there are studies that shown that as much as 40% of talent bringing in will eventually fail within the first 18 months if you do not execute it properly. And not to mention the cost of actually acquiring this talent is pretty high. So our work with our client has always been, if you think that external talent brings in at least 30 or 40% more additional talent you can have, then it makes sense. Yeah. But don't get to a stage where you have no choice because you did not invest in the earlier stage of reskilling and upskilling, and you end up having to do a last minute buy. That will be not the ideal situation. And lastly, do you adopt a borrow strategy, which is to appoint or work with outsourcing talent outside or even part-time work? And this can work too if you have a network of partners and you are clear in what sort of skills that you need to borrow. However, there are also risks to this. The risk of being able to manage projects, being able to transfer of knowledge or processes between you and your provider. And usually there will be a temporary reduction in quality as you go through this transition. So got to consider some of this. The main consideration, I would say, you need to decide, is that competency a core competency or not? It has to be a strategic decision. Let us look at now in detail, in terms of build strategy, how can we then identify two groups of people that we can upskill and reskill? And this is one group where we think upskilling works extremely well. Upskilling your high performance, your high potential, so that they can continue to retain their capability and skills within the organization as you expand their capability. Some people ask, hey, what happens if we train them and they leave the organization? I would ask, what happens if you don't train them and they stay in the organization? That will be a bigger problem. So we got to target this group to upskill them as our first priority. However, there are challenges. How do you accurately assess them, identify them, create programs that are effective, and continue to challenge them? Yeah, the key to keeping this group of people is giving them enough challenge while not alienating other employees. How about the other group? There's a group in your organization, I'm sure, that we call them the bottom performers, the poor performers. Do we remove them? No, actually, I think we should reshape them. Reshape them through rescaling so that they can actually become more productive in a new way that you could not imagine before. However, there are risks as well. How do you, while you're doing that, keep the morale up, keep the momentums up? And how do you address any unwillingness and so on? Yeah. The key is managing communications and reallocating your resources effectively. I want to say a personal story. About 10 to 15 years ago, I joined an organization where I thought there are quite a number of people whom I think are either not productive or not performing. However, without removing them and working with them and equip them with new skills, I found that eventually they become the core and the top performers of the organization, not so much of their skills, but because of their loyalty and their understanding of the business. So don't be too fast to write off people in the bottom or not performing for some reason. Think of a way to reskill them into a new area. Most companies end up actually having a combination of the two. This is where if you have workforce planning that is ingrained in you, you have the ability to do that very well, it becomes a very smooth process. However, I can assure you it's not easy. Our clients go through this, and as well as being trained for change management, how to drive transformation. And you go through that, you will be able to match how the new and old can coexist so that you can continue to guide through your new vision and align with the leadership. We added one more to the original article. We call this the BOT strategy, which is to leverage technology. How do you create new mindsets, starting at the leadership position, to invest and drive technology? We all know technology is nice and sexy, but do bear in mind this risk called the bleeding edge risk. If you are too early into any technology cycle, you end up bleeding or wasting a lot of resources. So be careful as we look at it. As we do that, do not alienate your other employees as you come on new and old skills. So these are the 7 strategies, right? If you can go back and apply this in your organization, I can assure you it will really help you plan for your workforce. The last 2 or 3 slides, I want to talk about how you can actually bring skills upgrading, reskilling into your organization. And I like to suggest you do not look at skills in a very one-dimensional manner. For us, we work with our client in terms of skills in 4 dimensions. At a functional level, be it HR, finance, IT. At a vertical level, what industry do you have? Healthcare, aviation, and so on. But consider also what sort of soft skills and behavioral skills do you need to do your job? And what are the technical skills, especially digital skills, that you may need in the job? One of the clients we work with apply these 4 steps to drive skills upgrading. They first send their people for workforce planning, and they didn't stop there. They actually get the team to apply the workforce knowledge at the workplace. So in the form of project, they were able to apply into their particular industry. They didn't stop there as well. They continue to coach them and give them counseling and mentoring so that they can now apply the interpersonal skills, how to get buy-in, how to get something received at the management level. And finally, they also sharpen their digital skills by adapting it in the digital format. At the end of the session, at the end of the several months of this program, we had a reflection from the learners. So the learners reflected and say, if we have not understand the 4 dimensions of skills upgrading, we will not have discovered that buy-in is even more critical than just the technical knowledge. So as you, as HR leaders, go through your skills upgrading and reskilling in your organization, do not look at one dimension in terms of skills development. Think of all 4 dimensions. Right? In summary, I would say, if you practice these 4 steps that we asked you in as far as why it is important, what are the questions to ask, under what circumstances do you use what strategy, and how do you actually implement it, you will have a head start versus many other organizations. I want to end with this one slide. I was reading this article on the Wall Street Journal about why companies are failing at reskilling. And you know why? One of the main reasons is they start too late. When you start too late, it's harder to train and get the time frame to upskill as much as you want to, right? So start today. I hope you can go back and start as you prepare for next year, a fresh idea of how you can equip yourself first as HR practitioner before you can expand it outside your organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kenneth. Really, thank you so much for the insightful sharing. I learned a lot myself. I won't take up too much time. I'll come back to some of the pointers that I learned from you, from your sharing later on during the Q&A segment together with you and Alvin. So thank you again, Kenneth. So without further ado, let me bring on our second speaker for today. May I now invite Alvin, SHRI's Executive Director, Mr. Alvin Aloysius Goh, to share about workforce management and alternatives to downsizing. Alvin, please. Okay, I'm just gonna start Alvin's video.
Hello?
Hi, Alvin.
Hi, great.
So, sorry, Alvin, could you change your display setting to the other setting? Because if not, we can see your presenters. Yeah.
Better?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Kenneth, for the very succinct and very clear guidelines about reskilling and upskilling itself. So, this afternoon, I just want to highlight certain key areas in terms of what are alternatives in terms of for organizations going towards 2021 itself. And as we know very clearly, this year, because of COVID itself, businesses have really taken a very bad hit, right? Overall, here in Singapore and also around the world itself. No one sector has actually gone unscathed of this, except for one or two particular industries itself, right? So because of COVID itself, all our business targets are off. People organizations itself have really looked at it from a financial perspective. And here in Singapore itself, the sad part of it is that actually when I actually did a Google trend analysis itself, and if you look at this page where I actually pull out itself, the word retrenchment was actually the #1 search keyword, in March, beginning on somewhere in March, and then later on, somewhat in the middle of the year itself, and that was how much people were worried about, in terms of getting retrenched and so forth. People were searching for, okay, what are the retrenchment benefits? How do I go about retrenching and everything? And to some extent, we have a very good, strong Singapore government here that actually provided many of the platforms for us to actually, shore up the economic turmoil that we were very much facing itself, right? And if we really look at it, the reaction thus far itself, Singapore residents' unemployment rose 4.5% in August. Singapore sees worst ever quarterly fall in employment as retrenchments double and so forth itself. But honestly, there is actually a lot more things that organizations can do besides retrenchment. All right, and I just want to talk a little bit on what are the consequences of a poorly executed reduction in headcount. All right, number one definitely is that if you do it wrongly itself, you will definitely go into reputational risk. All right, if employees themselves would actually view you very negative. All right, and last but not the other key point is also that many downsizing campaigns itself have actually to some extent let people go, and they turn out to be irreplaceable assets. All right, and this is actually something that has actually occurred even right now as we speak. All right, and those employees who have actually survived the staff perch itself has become narrow-minded, self-absorbed, and to some extent risk-averse as well, because everybody don't want to be on the chopping board, and everybody just wants to do what they're supposed to do and manage the expectations of the bosses itself, right? And the fourth key point is that a lot of them, when the market starts to move favorably itself, a lot of the organizations are unable to capitalize on the economic uptake itself. And the worst thing is that it's what Kenneth said earlier on about buying talent from the market itself. When you actually execute a poor retrenchment exercise, potential future employees would definitely hedge against you and your organization. And how do they hedge against you? You will find that the requests in terms of compensations will go up, than normal and stuff like that. And you find that you will be having a rather difficult, a rather difficult time to actually bring in talent, the right talent that you really want to do. So going forward itself, so what are the alternatives to downsizing? And honestly, the government itself has came up with this buzzword about responsible retrenchment. But I think, honestly, my feel is that we are going about the wrong way. Responsible retrenchment is not just looking at retrenchments, right? Okay, and the first key area that we can actually look like is business and cost management model. And that to me is the first port of call, whereby business owners, business leaders, and together with HR itself, we should be actually proactive to look at the business and cost management model so as to avoid all in all a retrenchment exercise. The second key area that we also can actually look like is the flexible wage scheme, right? Third, like the flexible work arrangements that, recently, just I think within the last 24 hours itself, DBS have actually come up with the job sharing scheme, right? And that's actually, it's not new. It's been around since the late 1970s itself, but DBS has actually modified the scheme itself to actually fit their needs, right? Fourth, of course, will be the job redesign and organization transformation. So going into 2021 itself, as I clearly put it out here, nobody plans to fail. It is because they fail to plan, therefore they will fail, all right? So I think these are the four key areas, that perhaps maybe those listeners out here and those participants out here would something for you to consider about. So let's dive into the first key area, which is really about the business and cost management. And I want to tell a little bit of a story over here. So sometime in June this year itself, SHRI, we got a call from a business owner who was actually looking at conducting a retrenchment exercise. So together with an associate consultant of mine, who is actually a CFA trained person itself, we went down to the company, we spoke to the CEO, and of course, the CFOs and stuff like that. And I actually asked to take a look at their budgets. I asked to look at their financial statements and so forth. So you'll be wondering, right, what's a HR person asking for the financials itself, all right? So that's where I think, the upskilling of HR professionals can come into play to become a true blue HR business partner. I think that's one avenue that we should not be afraid of, to actually deep dive into some of the financial figures and take a look at it. So the short story of this event was that we actually managed to help this company, SME company, scrub away, all right, through looking at the financials and the budgets of this company itself, scrubbing away non-essential spend, all right, things such as helping them to review their investment plan, proactively pausing any further investments, reduce or eliminate all the non-essential spend, such as, for example, the CEO had a country club, we scrubbed that off. All the department heads had got subscriptions to newspapers, magazine subscriptions, professional magazines, we scrubbed that out, and so forth and so forth. So at the end of the day, we managed to save on a monthly budget basis itself close to $30,000, and on a yearly basis, we managed to actually save, or rather save for the company about close to $300,000. So thus avoiding a retrenchment exercise altogether itself. So that to me is what I call responsible retrenchment without even retrenching anybody. All right. So of course, the second key area is business transition. All right. We should also look into moving away from cost inefficient methods and also somewhat old technologies into more cost efficient technologies itself. All right. So, the third point is I mentioned about the elimination of non-essential spend. All right. So that's one aspect that organizations can do. So the other area, of course, recently our National Wage Council itself has also come up about introducing the flexible wage scheme, right? And this is another very key important scheme that organizations can embark upon. So what is a flexible wage scheme, or FWS for short? FWS basically contains a sizable variable component that allows company to adjust wages cost quickly in severe business downturns. And it's not new. It's actually been around for quite some time, but the implementation and adoption by a lot of the Singapore companies here is slow, all right? And therefore, there's a need to actually look at this FWS scheme itself all over again. And recently, again, our National Wage Council has also come up to advocate this itself, all right? So the three components of a good FWS is, number one, of course, you have your annual rate variable component to identify key performance indicators to help drive performance itself, right? You can also introduce the monthly variable component, or MVC for short, and really move away from a seniority-based wage system by narrowing the salary of mean and max ratios itself. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the FWS itself. All right. So as I said earlier on, enlarging a annual variable component, okay, and AVC is usually comprises of a variable bonus and of course the AWS, and it's really linked to performance and paid on a yearly basis. All right, and the desirable level of AVC is about 20% of the annual wages for rank and file employees, and higher percentages for middle to senior management itself. All right, so there is a science to it. So if you're unsure, feel free to contact SHRI, and we'll be more than happy to guide you through this. All right. The second key area is, of course, the money variable component, or MVC itself. All right. And this actually sets aside a portion of the employee's salary, right, and allow the employers to the flexibility of adjusting wage costs itself, like for example, during this economic uncertainty. And of course, the desirable level is around 10% of the money basic salary itself. Okay, as I said earlier on, to end and move away from a seniority-based wage system itself, under the seniority-based system itself, wage increases are given to employees based on their length of service and characterized by long salary ranges itself. All right. And when you have a narrower mean and max itself, it actually starts to show who are the outliers of this itself. And moving away from this, tenure-based, seniority-based wage system itself, it allows you to actually look at how do I actually improve upon the jobs? As what Kenneth was actually saying, how do I upskill, reskill, the employees itself to take on a bigger role? And with a bigger role itself, that's where, productivity kicks in, right? And so forth. So the third key area that I really want to talk about is, of course, the flexible work arrangements itself, right? There are two areas that you can really look at, one with wage cuts and the other one is without wage cuts. So one of the key areas in terms of without wage cuts, you can actually redeploy your employees to alternative areas of work within the company, right? Redeployment of employees to other companies, all right, as what we have seen, like for example, Singapore Airlines, who has actually worked with NTUC and various agencies to actually redeploy some of the cabin crews to become safe distancing measures officers and so forth. And also, third but not least, introduce a flexible work schedule itself. All right. On the other hand, with wage cuts itself, okay, moving from a full-time role into a part-time, sharing of jobs as what DBS has actually done and introduced, and other work arrangements that you can actually look at, all right? For example, shorter work week, reduction of work hours, and perhaps maybe temporary layoffs and so forth. But these are some of the other methods in terms of how one can actually adopt a flexible work arrangement. Now, the other area that I really want to talk about is that if you really look at 2020, a lot of us would like to really have a, time machine and go back to January 2020 and, and look at this thing all over again itself, right? But 2020 is not just about COVID-19 itself, but 2020 is also the new decade whereby we are seeing the extinction of baby boomers more in the workplace and rise of the digital natives itself, both in the workforce and as well as consumers. So from the very simple infographic itself, you can see that by the year 2030 itself, the baby boomers is just going to be a very small percentage of the workforce and also the consumers itself, right? And the digital natives will start to come in. And when I talk about digital natives, of course, they are born within the year 1995 to 2015 and above, all right? And more so itself, the Gen Y will form the bulk of the workforce. So with the digital natives coming in itself, if you think about it, their preferences are changing, their taste buds are changing, their work style, their mentality are all changing, right? And this will actually affect how organizations pivot and offer their services and products as well. So let's take a look at what really has happened in terms of the jobs itself that has actually been transformed and really been replaced, right? If you look about maybe slightly more than 15 years ago, word processor jobs, milkman, video store clerk, switchboard operator, typesetter, encyclopedia salespeople, these jobs are really have been obsolete, all right? And the way I look at it is that with the digital natives coming in and as well as the introduction of technology that is coming in, digitalization of services, digitalization of products, and everything can be done with your smartphone, all right? To me, these are the potential jobs that will be at risk of disappearing. For example, travel agents, all right? Cashiers. If you go down to NTUC today, or for that matter, any of these fast food supermarkets itself, everything is almost self-serve, all right? Mail carriers, postmen, we have pop-up machines all around. People are doing online deliveries these days. So again, possible these are the jobs that would be at risk. Bank tellers, coming from the banking industry myself, we're also seeing the trend and the need to upskill and reskill some of our bank tellers itself to take on bigger roles itself. Printer, copier, employees, people in the print rooms, I think these jobs itself are really at risk as people move online, people are using lesser paper type of documents and so forth. So these are really at risk. So what is actually causing all these jobs to be at risk? It's very simply the digitalization itself. All right. Okay, so as here, if you look at this little cartoon itself, I think it's going to take some time for you to read through this cartoon. But the message here, all right, is that every job right now, all right, or most of the information, how we actually transact, how we engage, everything is almost digitalized now, online and so forth, highlighted in red here. So when we actually look at job redesign, there is a need, a mental need, all right, to be conscious that whatever we do, all right, we need to take into account workforce of the future, and of course the consumer needs of the future as well, with the digital natives coming into the workplace and being the next set of consumers, all right? So this is something that we really need to consider. How best can we actually serve our consumers and customers on a digital platform, and as well engage our employees themselves on the digital platform as well. So in terms of the principles of job redesign, of course, we know that there are three main areas, right? Restructuring of job task responsibilities, but more so importantly, I also want to look at the business transformation, business process review, and also introduction of technology. All right, having said that, let me break this down a little bit more for you itself. So there are these are the areas that I always focus on: process, procedures, platform, people, pace, and performance itself. So what does this mean in terms of process, procedures, platform, people, pace, and performance? Number one itself, many a times we have all these things, what we call legacy workflows. 10 years ago when I was, take for example, 10 years ago when you hire someone, this was the way of how things was done. And 10 years later, it's the same way of how things are being done. But really, when you look at the S&P 500 today, whatever most value companies or stocks itself 10 years ago versus today, it's so much different, right? Today itself, the top 10 most valuable companies today are all the technology companies as compared to General Electric, 10 years ago, Walmart and so forth, right? So I think it's important that when you actually do a job redesign itself, number one, I think it's important to have the customer in mind. So when you develop your processes, right, your workflows, everything, please have that customer in mind, all right? So, and make sure that the processes are customer-centric. If it's not customer-centric, so the key question to ask yourself, why am I still doing it if it's not customer-centric? Procedures, all right, I always believe that there must be some level of controls and governance here in terms of procedural management, but don't overstrap yourself with too many red tapes, and that slows down your speed to market itself. So procedural wise, I think it's important, but make sure that again it's customer centric in mind, but at the same time being able to be placed there and designed with a view that to safeguard the organization as well your customers. Of course, Kenneth has already talked about the people element itself, right? Again, the competencies of your people, the upskilling and reskilling needs to be there. And finally, the platform. Platform to me is really about the IT platform that one uses. It must be, all right, applicable to your organizations. And don't just follow blindly of what the multinationals are doing. All right, I think the platform need must be, all right, applicable to your own particular majority of your own organization itself. All right. So again, coming back to this keyword about pace, you look at your people, look at the maturity of your organizations, your competencies, the profile. All right. A, of course, is to be flexible in your approach. C, provide as much clarity as possible to your workforce. Know your start and end results of where you want to go. And honestly, if you are going about this transformation itself, you require an ongoing sense of good energy, because transformation at the end of the day is an ongoing intervention. It's not a start-stop intervention that you want. So pace yourself, because it really is a long haul that we are looking at for the next year or so. So pacing yourself will be important. It's also as to avoid a total burnout. So last but not least, that's my last slide itself. So I see Lynette coming online. So Lynette, over to you.
Thank you, Alvin. Thank you for the sharing. So I'll come back to Alvin and both Kenneth and Alvin later on in the Q&A segment. Okay. So for now, can I please welcome Yong Yang from WSG. Yong Yang is manager for partners and operations division at WSG. Yong Yang will be sharing with us various support programs under the SG United Jobs and Skills package. So hello, Yong Yang. Just hang on.
Hi, Lynette.
Hello.
Right. So just give me a minute to just share my slides.
Sure.
Is this okay?
Yes, looking good.
Okay. Right. So I'll start right now. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm here basically to give you an overview of some of the services and programs that WSG provides. And hopefully this sharing will be useful in helping you plan for 2021. So just a quick introduction first, in case you are not familiar with who we are. WSG, or Workforce Singapore, is a state board under the Ministry of Manpower. Up till 2016, we were known as WDA. We have since restructured to form two agencies, which is Workforce Singapore and Skills Future Singapore. So here at WSG, we look at the transformation of the local workforce and industry to meet ongoing economic challenges. Now, I'm sure all of you would have heard of the SG United Jobs and Skills Support Package, right? So this was introduced by the Deputy Prime Minister some time back, and the aim is basically to help Singaporeans assess job opportunities or pick up job-related skills and capabilities. This is so that when the economy picks up, we are all at a better place to move forward quickly. Now, today I'll be focusing more on the jobs pillar. One of the key initiatives here is basically the business-to-business job matching service, and our colleagues over at the Singapore Business Federation is the main coordinator for this effort. Alvin has mentioned this earlier, and you might have also seen this, quite a few examples of this on the news. This business-to-business matching over the past few months, right? So the idea is that where staff from a company A who has to be temporarily or permanently redeployed to another company because of the current economic climate. So basically, if you have a large number of vacancies on the same roles to fill, for example, let's say if you have, let's say, 20 help desk support officers, you can actually approach WSG or SBF to inquire about the availability of staff from other companies that potentially can be redeployed to take on these vacancies that you have. Conversely, if you are in a situation where you need to release a significant number of employees, you can also work with us. We can link you up with SBF to do bulk matching so that the affected staff of yours can find employment opportunities quicker. You can, of course, scan the QR code on screen right now for more information. Now, on a monthly basis, WSG, we also run at least 2 thematic virtual career fairs, or VCFs. We recently concluded a virtual career fair for healthcare, community care sector roles, and we are currently running one for facilities management sector. So the idea of VCF is that what we'll do is that we'll consolidate all these job roles that fit a particular theme and dedicate marketing efforts towards reaching a specific profile of job seekers for our employers who are hiring. And of course, if in the month that you're hiring for, there isn't a suitable VCF for you to participate in, you can always post your job on our national jobs portal, My Careers Future. To help you better filter out the most suitable candidates, we have an applicant listing feature where profiles of the most suitable candidates are listed on top. And if you're not able to garner enough applications for the roles that you're hiring for, there is a suggested talent option for you to review job seekers' profile and invite them to put in an application if you find their experience and skill set relevant to the roles that you're hiring for. And finally, if there is also an option for you to tag your vacancies to the various government schemes. So for example, if the role that you're hiring for has also a career trial program tagged to it, you can indicate accordingly, so for the benefit of the job seekers. So if you have 10 or more vacancies that you are looking to hire, you can get in touch with us as well. Our team, we run at least 10 recruitment events of various scale on a monthly basis. These are held at community clubs across Singapore, and is usually a very good platform for you to meet with and speak to job seekers. Our walk-in interviews are smaller scale events with about 2 to 3 employers per session. And our career fairs are larger scale events where we have about 8 to 10 employers from mixed sectors participating. Now, with all these hiring platforms that I've shared, it's still possible that you are not able to find applicants of the right fit. So as employers, we know you are always trying to fill your vacancies with the best fit candidates. But what happens if after you have tried for months and you're still not able to find the right fit candidate? Would you then consider putting someone who is perhaps 50% fit on a sort of a work trial for a couple of weeks or a couple of months? Take the time to train him, observe his performance before making a hiring decision. So if you are open to this concept of trying a candidate out before making a hiring decision, during this career trial or work trial period, what WSG will come in with is basically to support the training allowance that this individual will receive during the work trial period. So the process is basically cost-free for you as an employer. I'm not going to take too much time on this slide, but if you look at the column on the left, you'll see that there are 2 profiles of job seekers that are eligible for career trial. The basic requirement is that they have to be Singaporeans above the age of 16 years old and completed their national service. After that, we further categorize them into those who are unemployed for less than 6 months, which is the top column, and those who are unemployed for more than 6 months, which is the bottom column. So for both categories, again, WSG will come into support by paying the training allowance during the career trial period, right? The key difference here is that if the candidate that you are putting on career trial is someone who has been out of job for more than 6 months, if at the end of the career trial you decide to hire this individual, WSG will also come in to provide a salary subsidy of 30% for a period of 6 months. All right. Don't worry if this deck of slide is a little bit if there's too much information here, we can share this across at the end of today's session. I'll very quickly cover PMEX. This is only eligible to local SMEs. The intent is for you as a SME business owner to bring in a PMET level employee who might not have the experience working in an SME environment. The incentive of either $5,000 or $10,000, $10,000 if the new hire is someone who is above the age of 50 years old. So this incentive is given out once both the new hire and the direct supervisor of this new hire attends relevant workshops, right? And the new hire actually stays with the company for a period of 6 consecutive months, right? The workshop is basically a 2-day workshop for the new hire and between 1 to 3 days for the direct supervisor, depending on whether you are looking to claim $5,000 or $10,000. As you can see, there are multiple programs partners such as SNEF, ASME, and Workforce Advancement Federation listed here. So they are basically the administrators of the program. We'll be happy to do a link up if you guys are interested. And our partners here can basically share more information on the application process with you, as well as the relevant courses to attend. Now, each UEN number that you have, you can only claim $10,000 under PMEX, right? So what this means is that if you have previously already claimed for $5,000 and over the course of the next few months, you are able to hire someone who is above the age of 50 years old, you can actually put in a second application to claim for the remaining $5,000. Now, if you were to visit WSG's website, you will find that there are over 100 professional conversion programs or PCPs from about 30 industries and sectors, right? So as an individual, if let's say I am looking to make a career switch from say marketing to nursing, or let's say now I want to move into the logistics sector, or let's say I'm looking to go into to becoming a BIM modeler, I can actually take up conversion programs to train to be job ready, right? So for you as employers, what this means is that if you have a vacancy that is hard to fill because the skill set is quite specialized, you can check out the website to see if there's actually already a PCP available for this role, right? So if there is, and you do not mind hiring someone who needs to undergo a conversion program in the first few months of his employment with you, you can sign up for PCP. WSG, what we'll do is we'll come in with salary support and cost-free subsidy of up to 90% to help lower the costs for you while you work towards getting this individual job ready. So in this slide is an example of a PCP that you will find on our website. Every PCP will have its different structure and prerequisite, right? So in this example, this is specific to a PCP for lift specialist. The application process is for an individual to first secure a job with participating employers through the Lift and Escalator Associations, SLECMA, who happen to also be the program manager here. The individual will then go through classroom training of about 180 hours and then on-the-job training at the company's premise for up to 880 hours during this period. And as I mentioned, WSG will then come in to fund the training fees and the salary support. Right. There are also a few conversion programs that are targeted at rank and file positions. These are namely medical technologies operators, electronic operators, educarers, and cleaning specialists. The details and program partners of these rank and file programs you can find by scanning the QR code on the screen. like the PCP program that I shared earlier on, WSG basically comes in to provide salary and cost fee support. So to give you an example, the rank and file program for the medical tech operator is basically a place and train program. So what this means is that firstly, as an individual, you have to first go through the interview process and secure a job with one of the participating companies. What then happens is that you will go through a 1-month classroom training with the training provider, Singapore Polytechnic, before doing a 2-month structured on-the-job training with your employer. The training, so the training provider in this case is Singapore Polytechnic, right? So I've touched on quite a number of programs under the jobs pillar. For my last slide, I'm just going to share a little bit about the traineeship pillar of the SG United Jobs and Skills package. Now, the SG United traineeship for fresh graduate was also launched this year. I think quite a number of you will be familiar with this. Unfortunately, we have actually stopped taking in application for this program for the simple reason that the number of traineeship positions already in the market now has already far exceeded the number of fresh graduates who will be entering the workforce during this period. In its place, we have the mid-career pathway program, right? So the two programs are similar in construct, except for the fact that the traineeship is meant specifically for fresh graduates, and the mid-career pathway program is for everyone else. This program is really meant to help you employers build up your talent pipeline right now, so that once the economic situation recovers, you would already have someone who is experienced, trained, who is familiar with your process and company culture that you can easily convert into full-timers. All right. So I think that's all I have. My colleague Heidi and myself will be here until the end of today's webinar to reply to any questions that you might have. So feel free to post them on the Q&A board. And otherwise, that's all I have. I'm just gonna share this last slide with my contact details. Like, feel free to drop us an email as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Yong Yang. Thanks for sharing the various support programs that will aid businesses and HR consider, for example, the career trial and the PCP program, right? For HR to really consider putting some of your jobs there, should you require, and if there's a match, right? So all the best, and thanks a lot, Yong Yang. So Yong Yang and his colleague Heidi will be here. If you have any other further questions pertaining to any of the slides that Yong Yang had shared, any of the support programs, feel free to ask them in the Q&A, and they will answer you by typing in the comments. Thanks, Yong Yang. So now may I invite Kenneth and Alvin back to join us for the Q&A segment. Okay. Hello, Alvin. Hi, Kenneth.
Hello.
Welcome back. Thank you so much to both of you for the insightful sharing. I just want to go back and touch back and have a quick summary before we attempt some of the questions that we have from the participants. So I just want to thank both of you because there was really a lot to learn, I think, personally, and even for a marketing person to be working in a HR organization. And I'm sure the HR professionals with us today will be able to take back a lot with them. Kenneth shared about, for HRs or even business owners to really look into workforce planning, right? If you really want to even look at reskilling or upskilling, right? And I think that's really important because if you do not really even look at your workforce planning, right, you wouldn't be able to identify the right types of skill sets or matching that and current capabilities within your employees and your staff, right? And Alvin also mentioned about job redesign, and that is very much about matching skills as well, right? If you were to redesign your you want to redesign a set of job description, you would need to know the internal skills and capabilities of your employees. And that brings us really back to doing the entire workforce planning. So that's a quick real summary that I want to put through. And I just want to share with all the participants here today, and I was sharing with one of the participants who had a question, right, that we are very excited and we are very happy to say that we have actually launched 2 programs with CIPD today on workforce planning essentials and delivering transformational change. And it is really timely that we are actually doing this webinar today because all the topics are very closely related to what both Alvin and Kenneth has been sharing today. And in fact, what WSG has been sharing as well in terms of the programs that they are supporting business owners. So towards the end of the webinar, we'll share the links again with the participants who are keen in both the programs. Okay, so now let me, so sorry for taking so much time. Let me come back to the questions that we have from the participants. So there's one interesting one that I think I would like both Alvin and Kenneth to take on, and I'm sure the participants would very much like to know as well. So this participant is asking, for an organization that have been through change management and professionalism, the staff profile for some units have become very varied. So do you have advice for their L&D, or rather HR, to go from bottom up and risk losing potential high performer, or top down and perhaps may incur a higher training cost? It's a little bit tough, but I think it will be a good question to attempt first. Maybe I'll throw it to my boss first, Alvin.
I thought Kenneth was supposed to take the questions. Okay, I think, is the question posted online?
Yeah, it is. You can see it in the Q&A by our participant Wei Wei. So what do you think? Do you think yeah, they should go from bottom up or top down?
So I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that, you know, many organizations, you know, when we face any economic uncertainty or recession, the first thing that they always cut, right, from a business leader perspective is always the L&D budget, right? I'm not too sure if you've seen it. And when that happened itself, right, you know, we are not able to capitalize on the economic uptick, you know, because number one, we don't have the skill sets. Number two is that we are not primed and will be ready for it. So I don't think it's about, you know, coming from a bottom up or, you know, or top down itself. You know, I think you need to invest where your business strategy is going to be, you know, in the next first half or the next year or two, you know, and prioritize where that strategic priority is going to be, rather than you adopting top down, bottoms up, left to right, right to left. You know, it doesn't matter. I don't think you should look at it from that perspective, but prioritize where that business angle that you are going to capitalize on and prime your organization for the economic uptick. Kenneth, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Alvin. I agree with that, because I was reading the question and I would say neither, because I agree, Alvin, as I shared in my earlier presentation, the steps to looking at organization structure and workforce is always the same. As Alvin said, consider what are the core and key competencies and skills you need to survive now and also in the near future. So when you always have that principle, you will always end up with a very clear set of competencies and skills leading to the types of jobs and jobs family that you need. Not to say that your question is not relevant. I will put it as a second step, because I put that once you have that, then we do our talent 9-box strategy. Yeah? From the 9 boxes, you then prioritize based on the key competencies that you've identified. Where does it fit into your 9 boxes? Right? And if your top performers are in that high potential one that means a lot to your business, then that becomes your second step. Yeah. So Wei, I think to answer your question, I would look at it after, like what Alvin and I think, you have considered what are the key competencies and skills.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Alvin and Kenneth. I think to further help this participant, right, I think what Alvin and Kenneth both shared are very close related. And Kenneth clearly mentioned in your presentation earlier as well, right? For HR to really look into training budget and not cutting training budget, especially during this type of period. And what I want to add is that for Wei yourself to look into it in the sense that there are a lot of training courses these days that are heavily funded by SSG, by our government. In fact, a lot of our courses are funded as well, and the ones that we have collaborated with CIPD as well. So do look into those, because then it you know, then maybe you may not even come to this question that you have to attempt. Yeah. Okay. So I hope that helped Wei Wei. Okay. So another question that I want to take on may not be very, very relevant 100% to what our topic is, but I think it is very close at heart to what is happening on the ground now. So how can current employee stay employed, be motivated, and then remain employable during these challenging times? So how can organizations facilitate and help the employees? So perhaps maybe Kenneth would like to try this first.
So the first question is, how do we stay employable?
Employ and be motivated.
Okay, and be motivated. And then the second part is, how can organizations help them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's why when I presented at the start, I asked everybody to consider not just as an employer, think of yourself in the shoes of an employee as well. So while the employer is planning skilling and reskilling, you got to consider for yourself, what sort of skills do you see yourself, next year, the year after, and so on. So how do you do that is by constantly yourself scanning the environment, just like how the organizations are doing. You yourself need to scan and look at what is in the horizon. I found myself benefiting in my early career, having very good mentors. A mentor who has helped me, he just asked me one question when I was in my early 30s. He said, Kenneth, what do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And then I considered and I said, I was an engineer then, yeah. So I said, no, I cannot imagine myself being an engineer. So that really changed the course of my career. I started to relook at skills I would need to where I want to be, because I want to be in sales, I want to be in sort of management role. So one way for us is to be able to visualize what is it that you want and be motivated enough to train and build your skills around that. And how can employers play a role, right? So employers can play a role by encouraging them to go for upskilling and training. There are incentives program. There are incentives that you can actually help. I know organizations who incentivize their employees to go for training. Upon completion, they will get certain either monetary or non-monetary. We can give them recognition. In my first company I worked with in HP, they really recognize us even as we take our own effort to upskill ourselves. Of course, now we have SSG, who is also giving both recognition and even financial reward. So this is the best path, I would say, employers can help. And we also want to say that employers can remove obstacles. Because there are obstacles, they're busy and so on. If employers, as what Alvin say, create a flexible work environment, create environment where they can actually take time off to reskill and upskill, then there is no obstacle, there's incentive, and nothing should stop the employees from upgrading themselves.
Thanks, Kenneth. I really like the sharing. I think I completely agree with you. I like the part about personal, right? That you need to visualize across the horizon. Think a little bit further, what kind of skills you really require. I think at the end of the day, to this participant, how I would sum up Kenneth's answer would be, it takes two hands to clap, right? Yourself and your employer, for both of you to be thinking towards the same direction in order for it to work. So it's not just, what should the organization be doing for me, right? Sometimes what should I be doing for myself as well? So Alvin, what do you think? Can you top this off?
No, I think that's definitely, Kenneth gave such a good answer. So I'm thinking, how do I? So I think number one, as what they always say, right? Opportunities itself don't just land on your lap. You have to create them to some extent. So again, in my early career itself, not trying to steal the same line from Kenneth itself, but I did have a coach itself, and my coach actually told me, don't go around looking for a job, create value. All right, and that's where you will find a job and you find the opportunity. And the key thing is about, having a good understanding of your own self, your key strengths, your weaknesses, and your own developmental areas itself and capitalize on what you have, right? And therefore, when you look at it from taking a good step at yourself, from an outside in perspective, and knowing your key strengths and your areas of development, and you are then able to capitalize on it, that's where you can actually go forth and create value in terms of your current area of work, and definitely your employers will be able to actually see that, hey, look, XYZ is actually going beyond what he was doing, and he has or she has a certain key areas that it's really very important for the organization and be recognized as a key asset, right? So I think the creation of value must be there, right? And it helps, right, with your mental strength as well over during this period of time, because I know that a lot of people are very worried about where are they going to be on the chopping board tomorrow and so forth itself. So I think that's a very important.
Thanks, Alvin. Yeah, so I hope we have helped this participant. I think lastly, I just want to add that keep the spirits high, right? Look out for skills that you can upskill yourself, speak to your organization. I'm sure they'll be able to support you. Okay.
Let
So
me share a bit.
question.
I want, in case
Sure.
this
Go on.
participant is feeling a bit down or something. I was retrenched 2009. Not retrenched. My CEO came and then decided to reorganize senior management. So I left. But you know what? I took the time to talk to a career coach. So if you have a chance to talk, like Alvin and I, we both have the benefit of talking to a mentor or a coach. Is very useful, because he told me at that time, I remember 2009, we did a lot of assessment and said, Kenneth, you are good to be management, consultant, and in a philanthropic environment. So I said, wow, non-profit. But do you know that? So I actually, some of these are very true. So I built my consulting skills, my leadership coaching skills. And guess what? 10 years later, I'm doing all three. I'm in a non-profit organization, working on people, HR, a field that I wasn't trained in, but also in a leadership management role. So you see, if don't underestimate tough times like this, create the best opportunity for you to reinvent and recreate yourself if you put in the right effort to create and reinvent yourself. I mean, that's my personal sharing.
Thanks, Kenneth. I think that's really very uplifting. I hope we had helped the participant a lot. I'm very sure it did. Okay, so next question that I want to take is also actually directed at Kenneth. He's saying that because in your presentation you talked about build, right, requires strong internal talent development. So can you share your views on what makes strong internal talent development?
So as I always want to start off, my oxygen mask theory, HR needs to equip yourself first before you have the ability to look at equipping the organization. So whether is it a strong talent development or strong workforce, I feel that the HR professional in all of us need to upgrade ourselves first, right? So if you are in a business HR BP role, you're going to upgrade your business skills. You're going to upgrade your influencing skills. If you're in talent development, you got to do that. So after that, then you have to figure out what are the processes to get your talent development in place. And that actually would take time and effort. As you hear from my approach, I'm a very systematic person. And I think Alvin is the same. I learned Alvin has 6 Ps on all the processes, the platform. Actually, if you combine the two, what Alvin and I has been sharing, there's no shortcut. You have to get your people, your processes, your platform all in place. Yeah, and it takes time for you to build that. You cannot build that overnight. You have to first have the right person, which is your HR. Then you got to have the right processes in place, invest in the right platform. And that is your best chance, I would say, to be able to create some kind of a system that you can start to build on, because you cannot have overnight instant success. It will take time to build on and become more mature. Yeah, would you agree, Alvin?
Yeah, I definitely subscribe to what you actually said, true and true. It really takes time because talent development, as we all know, is not going to happen just overnight, or sending them for a 2-day, 5-day boot camp training, or on leadership and so forth. It takes time, and the ecosystem really needs to come together as one to support the overall talent development that organizations are embarking upon. Yeah, thanks for
Dominic.
that. Yeah.
And Kenneth, really, I completely agree with both of you. I think it takes a lot, and I just want to bring forth what Kenneth shared in his presentation as well, right, to this participant. So I think when you go back and after this webinar, think about it and start taking the steps. Don't wait, because a lot of times I think we think and plan, and then we wait, but we never take that baby step. So the first step is always tough, but once you take the first step, I think things will start flowing through. Yeah. So, okay, thank you so much. I'm going to just take in one last question, okay, because I'm very mindful of time. It's Friday. I want to make sure that all the participants can enjoy their Friday evening. Okay, so last one. I think this question is a very common question that a lot of HR face. So this question was a pre-question that was sent in before the webinar. So the participant was asking, so a lot of job functions like finance, HR, IT, compliance role needs to be changed to meet 21st century's need, right? Many are not changing fast enough, and are also using more integrated technology. So how can HR help, as the other C-suites and boards are a big challenge? So I think there is really two parts to the question. One is how can HR help? Second, I think how do you convince the C-suite and board to be on board with the HR? I'll leave it to both the gentlemen who would like to take this last question.
Okay, let me go first. This is actually a very common questions that we have been hearing from HR practitioners. You know, how do I bring this up to senior management? How do I bring up to C-suite? And what we find, it is not a lack of technical knowledge or skills. It's two things that are missing. First, we found that the business savviness, I call it, yeah, the ability to connect to business and the ability to be able to generate business insights. These are skills that are not very traditional for HR practitioner, but it is very important now as a HR practitioner to be able to connect to senior leaders in a business and in a very insightful strategic sense. So I would say first thing, develop that set of skills. How do you develop that business savviness and ability to generate business insight? Very important. You know, there's a difference between hindsight and insight. Many people are very good at hindsight. They create reports and say, there you go. No, we as HR leaders need to be able to tell our C-suite, what is your insight to this trend? In fact, even better, if you can start to look at what is the foresight. If this continue, what is going to happen? So the ability to have insights and foresights are important. Then there's another set of skills, which I mentioned just now, the soft skills. HR people are very good in their work, but sometimes when it comes to influencing, ability to drive change, that is not so natural for them. So I would say for this HR professional, build on this set of skills. Build on this set of soft skills that will get your agenda across to the C-suite. You can have your best plan, but you cannot convince others. You know, I mentioned in my final slide about this particular learner who discovered at the end of his journey that the buy-in skill is more important than the technical skills. That to me was a tremendous revelation, and I hope all of us as HR practitioners can sharpen all our dimensions, not just the technical side.
Thanks, Kenneth. Alvin, what do you think?
No, I think definitely, you know, we have embarked on this, you know, the term human resource business partner, right, came out like, you know, more than 10 years ago as we transformed the HR landscape, right? But if you really think about it, right, the business element is totally missing. So in the past itself, when we go up to the board levels and we present our data, you know, be it our quarterly meetings and so forth. So the first thing that actually comes to mind when the board looks at our presentation kit, where are all the financial ratios itself, right? They always ask questions like, for example, revenue per staff cost. All right, what's the churn rate? What is the cost of recruitment and the ROIs and stuff like that? The first thing that board members always look at is always the financials. Of course, sometimes we wish that there could be a pivot in terms of not us looking at financials, but looking at more of the HR perspective. But if that's the traditional way, and if your board itself is coming from that perspective, then it's really, as what I said earlier on, right? That HR itself, it's time to be uncomfortable. All right, it's really time to make yourself uncomfortable and take on and understand finance and understand financial ratios, so as to then be able to speak the same language as your business partners itself. And that's what a true HR business partner is, right? It's not about making sure that the processes are tip top, the procedures are there, effective, and so forth, but really complement the business themselves, right? And be able to use the same language. I think that's really very important. And really, I think, if you're not embarked upon that, I think it's really time to get uncomfortable.
Yeah, agree. Thanks both Kenneth and Alvin. I hope this really had helped the participant and will allow he or her to go back and think a little bit on some of the skill set that Kenneth was sharing that maybe he or she should consider embarking on to convince the C-suite in that sense. So as we come to the end of today's session, I really would like to thank both Alvin and Kenneth again. Before we leave the session, is there any last key takeaway you would like to give our participant? Kenneth, maybe. One key takeaway, anyone.
Actually, I got two. Kenneth, two.
Okay, sure, so, of course.
First is the don't wait, right? Because if you wait, you end up being forced into a situation. Yeah. So plan now for reskilling. Second one, oxygen mask. Remember oxygen mask. Train yourself first. We as HR professional must equip ourselves first before we can do the job of equipping other people and organization. That's my point.
Thank you, Kenneth. Succinct. Alvin, what about you?
I think I just stick to one point. All right.
Sure.
I think number one is this. All right. 2021 itself, unless you have a crystal ball to actually show what's going to happen in the next year or so. All right. As what Kenneth said, don't wait. All right. Transformation. If you're not embarked on any transformation plans to really upskill and reskill, all right, you're still not too late. I think right now is really a good time to actually really look hard from an outside-in approach and see what you can do in terms of transformation. And at the end of the day, as I said, in my last slide, pace yourself when you look at transformation plans for your own organization itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvin and Kenneth. Thank you again for the candid and very insightful sharing with us today. I hope this session has been very helpful to the participants. So before we leave, I just want to share a couple of programs that SHRI has planned towards the end of November and early December, okay, to share with all of you. And also very happy to share again that we have just launched, in fact, today, 2 collaborated programs with CIPD, one on workforce planning essentials and the other on delivering transformational change. And, it's like I shared, it's really very timely. What both Kenneth and Alvin shared with us in their closing remarks, right? Don't wait, plan now for reskilling. Oxygen mask, I really like that. Train yourself. If you're a HR professional and business leader with us today, if you're considering after this webinar to train yourself, I would really highly recommend you to look at the workforce planning essential and the transformational change programs, because these will really help you have a hard look within your own organization's manpower planning, how you can really plan it better. You'll be able to learn all the right processes that will be able to help you plan towards your manpower planning in 2021. And also, just want to say, these 2 programs are subsidized by SSG, and they are up to 90% funding. So I think this will help a lot of organizations, okay? So as you can see on the screen now, you can scan on the QR code to find out a little bit more about the 2 programs, okay? So next slide, there are a couple of other programs that our SHRI Academy runs. Please feel free to check them out on our website as well. Okay. So as you leave this session, you will be brought to a survey screen, which will help us improve future sessions. So we'll be very, very grateful for your participation. And lastly, if you have not become an SHRI member, please feel free to reach out to me or look out at our website and sign up today. So thank you all. I hope this session has been helpful. Have a great weekend and we'll see you around soon. Take care. Thanks, Alvin. Thanks, Kenneth. Thanks, Yongyang.
Thank you. Have a
Thanks
good
a lot.
weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.